Hi theory students. Today we'll be covering chapter 25, which deals with modal mixture. Modal mixture is the borrowing of notes and chords from the parallel key. So for example, if you're in F major, you may borrow A flat, D flat, or less commonly E flat, in order to create a one chord minor instead of the major one chord, the minor 4 chord instead of the major 4 chord, etc. It has the effect of extending the expressive range of a key without changing the tonality, so we can stay in F and just use some of the expressive things in F minor, even though the piece is primarily in F major. You can borrow as little as a single note that's part of an embellishment, or as much as an entire parallel phrase in the minor mode, as the need calls. The notation of it: if the root of the chord remains unchanged, just alter the Roman numeral to reflect the quality change. So the major 1 keeps the same root, borrowing from the minor, it becomes minor 1. The 2 chord, which is minor, becomes a 2 diminished chord, etc. If the root does change in this borrowing, then you need to show the alteration like this. The median chord in a major key, which is a minor chord on 3, now becomes flat 3 because the root is changing. Think of F major, A natural, this would be an A minor chord. F minor, A flat, that becomes an A flat major chord. So we have to put the flat before the Roman numeral 3 to show the roots being altered. But then we capitalize the 3 to show that it's a major chord. So that's what that notation is about. Most modal mixture occurs when you're in the major mode and borrowing some expressive minor key devices. Maybe that's because minor has so many of those expressive devices. The opposite is less common. In a minor key, the final cadence on a major 1 chord, the so-called Picardy third, is famous, but there are fewer uses of other kinds of modal mixture in this direction. Largely, if we're in the minor mode, we stay in the minor mode. When we're trying to figure out what to double when we're borrowing chords, use the same doubling that you would if you were in the parallel key. That is to say, you double the root of root position chords, a stable or non-tendency tone in the first inversions, and you double the bass on second inversions. The textbook has a number of great examples, and we'll look at some of them in class. Here's a very simple example that I created. Imagine that we have a phrase of music in F, and I'm alternating the major neighboring 6/4 with the minor neighboring 6/4, and then moving to a cadence, like this. Okay, notice the power of the major version right next to the minor version. It's almost as though a little cloud came over and darkened a sunny day for a moment, and then was banished when we go right back to the major 4 chord as our predominant, and the cadential 6/4, and perfect authentic cadence. Here's an example from your example 25.4, in which they show the transformation from a major key progression And what would happen if the predominant area, this chord here, borrowed from F minor? We would change that to D flat, and now we would have to write this as a 2 half diminished 6/5. It's a very slight change. It sounds like this. If we did this now for the rest of the phrase, what would happen would be the cadential 6/4 now would feature an A flat, and that would now become a minor 1 chord. Notice that we still use a leading tone E natural, just as we would if we were in F minor. So now, okay, maybe I don't want to go that far. Maybe I want to keep the major 1 at the end. So that we have that darker color in the middle of the phrase, but begin and end with a major chord. You could see all of these possibilities. We'll look at some great examples in class and see how the great masters used modal mixture. That's all for today.